Matt Mowers is with us. Matt Mowers is the former executive director of the New Hampshire Republican Party when they were in charge. And since he left, they've gone down the tubes. Fred Doucette, much to your chagrin. And I heard the story last night of when Fred Doucette led the coup against Bill O'Brien. It's the first time I heard that story.
Yeah.
And he told it. He told it along with Bruce Breton in great detail.
Oh yeah, and they remember every moment.
And it's like you've got to write that down and capture it. And I'm like, how did you keep that secret from everybody? Because they didn't find out till 2 hours ahead of time, and he was working on that for months. I'm like, man, you were the anti-leaker of all time. He says, hey, I'm a fireman.
If you want to win, you have Fred on your team. Yeah, that's what that means, right?
And he is one of the co-chairs of the Trump campaign in New Hampshire. Matt Mowers with us, New Hampshire ED 2014, 2016. He was with the Trump campaign, part of that victory. Then he went through the agency sausage maker, wanted to work for the government, went through the agency ringer. He was this and he was that, got out of that, couldn't stand it, and now he's got his own shop. He's a consultant helping the Trump campaign. So, Matt, we want to talk about Corey Lewandowski because we know he's going to run for the U.S. Senate, and Dave Bossie did a poll. Don't laugh, Matt. Dave Bossie did a poll, and yes, Dave Bossie is our neighbor, and he did do a poll, and Corey's at 30% for the Republican. I can't even say this, Dave. I can't even say your poll with a straight face. Corey's at 30%. Let's see, who was it? Bill the Never Trumper O'Brien, who I had on my show yesterday, was at 9%, and the Brigadier General Don Boduk was at 10%. Of course, this poll done by Dave Bossie, who's our roommate there at Corey's house. So it's a little suspect, but I think he's going to run. I think he's going to win.
I mean, look, Corey's a friend. We'll see. I chatted with him recently. We'll see if he actually, runs. I think he's got to go through, the same thought process everyone goes through before they run for, a really high-profile office. There's a big personal toll it takes on you, personally, professionally, with your family. So I think, he's going through that thought process right now, and we'll see where it ends up.
Well, I think he's going to run. And look, I think he's going to. I think if he runs, he's going to be the nominee. I mean, Bill O'Brien isn't going to beat him. Like Bill, I had him on my show yesterday. But Matt, here's the problem: Bill O'Brien, former Speaker, New Hampshire, was an avowed never Trumper, and some of the comments he made, back during the cruise bot era, that's what we call it, going through that battle with Cuccinelli, going through that battle. A lot of the comments he made are going to come back to haunt him. I mean, he is not going to beat Lewandowski.
No, Bill O'Brien has no chance to beat, Corey or General Bolduc or one of the other guys. I just think O'Brien's a non-starter in this Republican primary here. You can't be as vocally opposed to the president as Bill was in 2016, up until weeks before the election, and then try to say you're changing your tune. Now he says he was Trump before Trump, except he didn't support Trump when there was Trump. Yeah, I don't know where
that is the best line. Kira, we have to capture that line by Matt Maurer. Just capture that and get that on tape, and I have to send that to Lewandowski for his campaign. Matt,
we're having fun here today, John.
That was the best line. I got to remember that. Kira, be sure you get that, and that's being recorded. He was Trump before he was Trump when he was never Trump. That's good. No, he has no shot. I mean, Fred Doucette showed me a meme they did of some of his comments, and I didn't even believe it. I said, there's no way he said this. I mean, you guys just made this up. So then he goes, how Fred is. He's got like a machine. He goes back in his car. He's got files flying all over. And he's like, get me the paper clips of the New Hampshire Gazette or what's ever here. And the Union Leader. Like, yeah, here it is. Right here. He's got the date and everything. He's got no shot.
No, I mean, Bill, I think O'Brien started, he called the president a liar. He called him a sleaze machine. Yeah. It was just really, really nasty stuff.
Yeah, he's
really
got
nasty stuff.
No shot.
Not in this party. Not in this party.
Not right now in New Hampshire. But I think Corey's going to run. I think is going to be the nominee. So, what else? I mean, what? You were the executive director of New Hampshire. We're going to bring Kayleigh Mcenany in. Also, she's the spokesperson for the Trump campaign.
Hey, great to join you.
Good to have you again.
Yeah,
In
great
the
to be
flesh,
here.
in
Yeah,
person.
of course.
And you know Matt, right?
I think we've met.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, now you know him. Get you both in. So, look, you were ED of New Hampshire when they had a Republican Party that actually was winning.
Right.
What do you guys got to do to turn the corner in 2020?
I think you got to unify, right? First and foremost, you got to unify behind the president. The president's delivered amazing success for this state between what he and Governor Sununu are doing. It's an economic miracle right now in New Hampshire. One of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, lowest unemployment rate since the late 80s. Since candidly before I was born, the economy in New Hampshire has not been this successful before. There's no better time to live in this state because of the leadership of the president and Governor Sununu working together to deliver real economic results. And by the way, that also goes across sectors, right? That's manufacturing jobs. I've been up to those closed plants up in Berlin and manufacturing plants up there that have been closed for decades. And close to 2,000 new manufacturing jobs alone here in the state of New Hampshire have been created under this president's record. It's really amazing to see.
And Kayleigh, I want to get you in here. The president, obviously, tonight in his message, he's going to be talking a lot about the economy in New Hampshire and throughout the United States. Yet, yesterday we had a big downturn in the stock market. It's rebounded a little bit today. A lot of people wringing their hands over the potential of some kind of a global slowdown. But the other thing is, Kayleigh Mcenany, is we've actually got Democrats and pundits on television hoping for a world recession so that Trump can get beat. Have you ever why would you want Americans to suffer? Kayleigh, is that like the most incredible thing you've ever seen?
Yeah, it's incredible that they are rooting on a recession. And by the way, on the heels of this bizarre and somewhat bogus, actually absolutely bogus story of a recession, we get a report that U.S. productivity grew at a healthy 2.3%, and Americans are going to see their wages go up yet again. Wages, of course, going up at the fastest pace in a decade and twice as fast for low and middle income Americans. So to root on a recession, it's really a rather revolting thing to do, but nevertheless, you have the left doing this. It's worth mentioning Obama and Biden oversaw the worst economic recovery since World War II. Democrats want to take us back there. President Trump has lit this economy on fire in New Hampshire, as Matt mentioned, and nationwide.
So, Matt, with the economy doing so fabulous in New Hampshire, how does the president not turn 2,700 votes and win?
Oh, he will. He will. I mean, so it's funny. We're in this classic diner in New Hampshire right now. You have not been president of the United States in the past half a century, not visited this diner. Right next to you, John, there's a tag saying that Al Gore sat in this booth. The last time a Republican won New Hampshire was when Al Gore was the Democratic nominee. And it inspires me, actually, because I'm pretty confident that whoever the Democrats nominate this time will be the first Democrat since Al Gore to also lose New Hampshire. So I think the president's going to switch those votes. Guys like Joe Biden, talk about, his he's trying to campaign as the Union Democrat, blue-collar Democrat, yet he opposed, he supported the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He voted for NAFTA. I think he's going to have problems with his own base here in a state like New Hampshire. Elizabeth Warren is catching fire on the left right now because you have a lot of Democrats who are saying, well, isn't this the Joe Biden that voted for the Iraq War? Isn't this the Joe Biden who's actually opposed a lot of progressive policies? So you have a real split here in the Democratic Party right now. You've got two local favorites between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who are either in Vermont or Massachusetts on other ends of the border. I think you're not going to see a successful Joe Biden in a state like this if he even made it that far. So I think the president's going to win this state.
Well, it was interesting. Elaine and I were here early. We had two Democrats on our show that are not voting for President Trump in 2020. And we assumed they were voting for Biden. I mean, they were senior citizens, Caucasian women. That's Biden's base on paper. Both of them said no way, like he was their last choice. And both of them were voting for Beth Warren as it stands now. So I think you might be onto something. But Kayleigh, as you look at this, as you look at the Trump campaign right now, and you said something that I agree with 100%, that the worldwide recession is just made up by the media, right? I mean, there's no indication of that anywhere. And so you've got clowns, and this is just my bias. You got clowns like Nick Cavuto going on TV every day telling us the sky is falling, economic Armageddon is coming because some farmer in Iowa can't sell a soybean to China. How do you, as the spokesperson for the Trump 2020 campaign, Kayleigh, how do you counter that?
Well, one, it's important to note, and I think America understands that China is a massive threat to our country. They have taken advantage of this country for decades on end, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs that have gone unredressed. You look at their forced technology transfer. A U.S. business goes to China and is forced to give over their technology in order to participate in the exchange of goods. Stealing our intellectual property. The American citizens and farmers understand the threat that China poses. In fact, in one Midwest state, a Chinese national was captured as he was trying to take genetically modified soybeans seeds out of the ground so that they could replicate it in China. That's the kind of theft we're dealing with, even within the farm community. So America understands the threat of China. If we don't take on China now with the hottest economy in modern history, at what point do we take China on? The answer is now. The American people understand this. And even, look, Joe Biden understands it because he said China is not a threat to our country and got so much blowback that within a few days he was forced to do a 180 on that, as he did with the Hyde Amendment and so many other of his policies.
And Matt, in a Rasmussen poll that just came out, 57% of farmers said they support the president's China trade initiatives. Only 30% are opposed to it. And if you look at the crosstabs in that poll, what they were saying is, look, we might take a short-term hit, but this is in the long-term best interest of us and the country. And what the president's trying to do is bring the supply chain back to the United States, bring the jobs back, bring the suppliers back, so that instead of all the manufacturing going to China, that those supply chains come back here. And I think patriotic Americans understand that. I mean, it's no different than when the Japanese bombed us in 1941. We stopped buying cheap Japanese consumer goods. We stopped buying it, right? It didn't make any sense. Well, it's the same thing.
When you've got almost state government-backed commercial spy agencies in Huawei right now, you saw just recently it came out, I think the Wall Street Journal, saying that Huawei was actually working with 2 different governments in Africa to spy on their citizens. This is a tech company backed by the Chinese government, which is now working with governments to spy on their own people. It's a commercialized spy agency. This is what the Chinese have been doing now for decades, and we finally have a president who's calling them out on that.
And now, Kayleigh, I'm sorry, Elaine, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I'm with Job Creators Network, and we represent small businesses, 30 million of them across the country. They're employing half our workforce. And one of our small business owners is in Illinois, small manufacturer. She employs about 20 people. And she competes internationally on quality. That is the best way for her to compete. But she can't compete on price and even labor because Chinese can pay so much less. She fully supports what President Trump is doing. And that's what we're hearing almost across the board from our small business owners. It's not that there aren't certain sectors being hurt by the tariffs, but they do understand that it's essentially a short-term pain for a long-term gain. They don't want to go back to the status quo. I mean, that's what we're hearing. They don't want to go back to what they were dealing with, and they believe that this is the right path to take, and they're willing to kind of take a little bit of the pain to get to the right place.
Right, and we've seen in our polling, actually, in a state like New Mexico, the Hispanic community is moving toward the president. When we ask why, the answer is Chinese tariffs. And believe it or not, the Hispanic community in all of the states we have polled, their number one issue is Chinese tariffs. They support Chinese tariffs because they understand that China has taken jobs, displaced American workers, as you mentioned, made it harder to compete on the price level. So China is a threat to our country, plain and simple. We must take them on, and I do believe the American people and business owners understand that.
Absolutely.
Kayleigh, in the president's remarks tonight, we were talking about this earlier. Elaine and I and many others just absolutely shocked beyond belief. 6 officers, police officers, gunned down yesterday in Philadelphia in a hostage situation, and bystanders that were watching it behind the rope cheering every time a cop went down, almost like you're playing a video game. I know the president has been a big supporter of our men in blue and law enforcement, but you think there's going to be a special tribute tonight? Because, I mean, Americans see this, and it was a shocking video last night, seeing people cheering as cops get shot.
Yeah, the disrespect.
Sick.
Yeah, it's sick, and the disrespect for our officers must end. I mean, we saw the water being tossed on them in New York City. We saw last night the cheering on as police officers were under threat of gunfire. It's disgusting. And no one cares more about our law enforcement officers than President Trump. And in fact, we saw law enforcement deaths, which were going up to an all-time high under President Obama, come down under President Trump. And I fully believe it's because he has shown his respect for law enforcement. He's demanded the nation respect law enforcement. And unfortunately, we had the Ferguson incident, which really put a match underneath what was a very tender situation in our country, and wrongfully so, since that officer was cleared of all charges. But nevertheless, you have 2020 Democrats out there misconstruing that situation and calling it murder, even though we know it was lawful self-defense. They are not helping this situation with that kind of rhetoric and by bringing up the wounds of Ferguson, which were misconstrued from the beginning by the Obama administration.
And you know, this is a president that actually believes in the rule of law. You know, you watch the Democrat debate, and what they're advocating for is lawlessness at this point. They're saying they want to decriminalize crossing the border and entering our country illegally. They then say they want to use taxpayer dollars to actually give free health care benefits to these illegal immigrants. We have health care challenges in our own country. We have health care challenges that we have to tackle with our own citizens right now. Health care costs actually are one of the number one reasons why families in New Hampshire go bankrupt. And so we need to actually use the resources to help our own families here first. We're compassionate people. The Democrats on the left want to say that, we don't believe in immigration. We love immigrants who come here legally, but it comes down to the fact we believe in law and order. We believe that the government's job, the U.S. government's job, is first and foremost to ensure the safety, security, welfare, and well-being of the American citizens.
Elaine, you have two teenage daughters, or one 20, I think, and one in high school. Watching what happened last night in Philadelphia, what would be your message to them?
I mean, I would just want to point out to them the lack of civility that we're at and the lack of respect. I don't even understand it. And I would just continue to explain to them that the reason why our first responders, we need to respect them. We need to have respect for them. They are the people who are going to come and help us in a time of need. It's really saddens me to see things like that.
Sad. No question about it. All right, predictions. Honest predictions. Matt Maurer, you guys going to win New Hampshire?
Yes.
Kayleigh?
Absolutely.
All right, tell me what are our chances in Virginia?
Good. I mean, I think the president's got a lot of support.
I like good.
Good. I think they're
I
good.
like good is good.
John, Virginia gets overlooked sometimes, right?
Yes.
It does.
Thank you.
People don't talk about it, but the president did better than expected in 2016 in Virginia. I remember being.
Wait a minute. Stop. Okay, Kira, now you got to get that second clip from Matt here. He's like my clip machine today. Say that again, Matt.
So here's what I'll tell you. I was in Trump Tower on election night, 2016, and the early numbers are coming in for Virginia. Everyone says we should have spent more time in Virginia. It was amazing how close we came. I think the president's going to win Virginia this time.
So you say we did better than Virginia than anybody thought we did.
That's right.
And who was the Trump chairman of Virginia? Kayleigh, who was that?
I
Oh, that was me!
I believe it was you.
Yeah.
What was it, John Fredericks? Thank you. Hey, Kara, keep all these clips here. All right.
What about Florida? I
Thanks
live
for
in
the
Florida.
plug. No, screw Florida.
He's going to win my home state, no doubt. We were good in 16. We'll be good in 20.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, Kayleigh, are we going to win Virginia?
I think so. Look, I think that the media certainly will be surprised. This will look a lot like 1984. Look, are we going to win 49 states like Reagan? That's a tall lift these days. But I do think it's going to be a much redder map than 16. And the media is going to be surprised. They won't see it coming. So, yes.
There's a lot of states. Minnesota, is a great state. Oregon, I think, is a great state. There's a lot of states out there that the president's going to compete in here. And, pundits are going to be shocked, and Rachel Maddow is going to be crying on election night again, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, on CNN, somebody's going to have to go in New York and Washington on CNN night, and they're going to have to lock the windows, right? Because people are going to be jumping out of them when Trump wins again. But I think he is going to win New Hampshire. He's certainly, I think, in really good shape in Florida. And, look, Virginia's tough. But last year, you got to remember, we lost by 4. We had very little resources. President came there a couple times, not a lot. We had very little resources. I also had to deal with Governor Terry McAuliffe, who was Hillary Clinton's buddy, who spent God knows how much money in there. We had to deal with Tim Kaine, who was a very popular senator who was running for vice president. I'm not going to have to deal with any of that. Ralph Northam can't raise any money, so I'm not going to have to deal with any of that in 2020. So yeah, I think we have a shot to be very, competitive and maybe pull an upset there.